meeting of the Shawnee County Planning Commission to order, and we thank you for your attendance here. We will first have our, well, I guess I am supposed to announce the hearing procedures. The purpose of the public hearing is to gather information from the public to help the commission to formulate recommendations in order to ensure a fair and orderly meeting where everyone can participate. The commission requests that you act respectfully to everyone in attendance and follow the public hearing procedures. The chairperson will call the public hearing item. The planning department will present the staff recommendation. Commissioners may ask questions of staff. There'll be a presentation by the applicant and/or representatives. Commissioners may ask questions of the applicant. The chairperson will open the public hearing. And before we begin public comments, speakers will be limited to 4 minutes per person. Keep your remarks focused on the topic of the new case under consideration. This helps ensure that everyone has an opportunity to speak and the discussion remains relevant to the item before us. The applicant will have a chance for rebuttal comments. The chairperson will close the public hearing. Commissioners may ask questions. There'll be discussion and then take action. Speakers must speak from the podium and state their name and address for the record. The chairperson reserves the right to establish the time limit, which I mentioned was 4 minutes. The designation of a spokesperson for groups sharing a common point of view is encouraged. All comments and questions will be directed to the chair from the podium and not to the applicant, the staff, or the audience. When the hearing is closed, additional public comments are not permitted. Will you call the roll?
Dan Bryan.
Here.
Myron Lenwetter.
Here.
Chad Gearhart. Jeanette Johnson.
Here.
Rosa Cavazos.
Here.
Terry Robinson.
Here.
Okay, with 5 members present, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Have there been any communications from the public to the staff that we need to know about?
Just, I would mention the one email that was received in regards to the case outside.
So this morning we received an email from a neighbor in regards to the first case that you're going to hear in regards to opposition. It's been printed and added to your packet for your review.
Thank you.
I would, I guess, also just add, since this is a rehearing, or at least one of the matters is a rehearing, that all emails or communications that had previously been presented, anything that we've previously heard at the public hearing before would all still be relevant and apply. That all still is applicable to your hearing tonight.
There been any ex parte communications by members of the commission?
No.
Okay. Any declaration of conflict of interest? Right, then the chair will call the first item, the conditional use permit, and ask the staff to present.
All right, thank you. My name is Hareen Perez, and I'm the Planning and Zoning Administrator. Our first item is CU 2503 Hammond Partners LLC, a request for a conditional use permit to operate a short-term cabin rental facility. It's located at Southeast Woodring Road in Monmouth Township. It's about 119.10 acres. Here you have the general location of the site shown by the blue star. Some background, this item was heard at the Planning Commission hearing on September 8th, 2025. The applicant originally submitted a request for an RV park and short-term cabin rental facility, proposing 43 RV spots and 24 two-bedroom cabins. After the submittal, the applicant reduced the number of cabins to 12, eliminating all that were located on the west side of the property. During the public hearing, the applicant's representative attended. They provided comments and answered questions. 12 people spoke in opposition, none in favor. 5 letters of opposition were received prior to the hearing. The staff findings were the proposal met the golden factors and was recommended for approval with conditions. The Planning Commission action, there was a motion to recommend denial, which passed 4-0. After the meeting, the applicant's representative contacted planning staff to discuss public and commissioner concerns. The Board of County Commissioners heard this item on December 8th, 2025. Staff advised the BCC that the Planning Commission recommended denial of the original proposal. Staff also noted that the applicant had revised proposal and recommended returning the proposal to the Planning Commission for reconsideration. The BCC voted 3-0 to send the matter back to the Planning Commission. So the revised proposal, they eliminated the RV park. Now they're going to be offering short-term cabin rentals only, 15 cabins. They're going to have a maximum stay of 14 consecutive nights. They must vacate the property a minimum of 5 nights before they can return. They're going to have a camp manager on call 24 hours a day within 30-minute drive of the park. They will also have a backup manager available for emergencies. As stated, they're going to have 15 cabins with the max stay of 14 consecutive nights. Reservations and guest rules there were no changes to those. Same thing goes to the lake use and recreation. Under vehicle and site management, as mentioned before, the camp manager is going to be on call 24 hours a day within a 30-minute drive of the park, and then they're going to have a backup manager available for emergencies. While no single golden factor is controlling, all factors were considered in the writing of the original staff report and this update. The golden factors are as follows. 1, the character of the neighborhood. 2, the zoning uses of nearby properties. 3, the sustainability of the property for the uses to which it is restricted. 4, the extent to which the change will affect the nearby properties. 5, the length of time the property has been vacant as zoned. 6, the gain to the public health, safety, and welfare by the possible diminution in value of the developer's property as compared to the hardship imposed on the individual landowners. 7, the recommendations of a permanent or professional planning staff. And 8, the conformance of the requested change to the comprehensive plan. So here, number 1, character of the neighborhood. The property is located in a rural area of Monmouth Township and surrounded by agricultural and large lot single-family residential use. The proposed short-term cabin rentals build upon the property's historic recreational character, which was Camp Hammond, and will continue as a recreational destination. Operational rules and restrictions ensure compatibility, thank you, with the surrounding neighborhood. Number 2, zoning uses of nearby properties. All surrounding properties are zoned RA1. The proposed CUP is consistent with uses permitted under RA1 by a conditional use permit and provides a recreational use that complements existing rural and residential land uses. 3, sustainability of the property for uses to which it is restricted. The property is sustainable for recreational development due to its size, existing lake, and historic use of a camp. The proposed short-term cabin rentals are a natural extension of this sustainability and utilize the site without requiring a rezoning. 4, extent to which the change may negatively impact surrounding properties. Potential impacts such as noise, traffic, and activity would be addressed through operational rules such as quiet hours, pet restrictions, and so on. The property's large size and separation from neighboring residents further minimize potential impacts. 5, length of time the property has remained vacant as zoned. The property has been used for recreational purposes since prior to 1981, the proposed use would continue this recreational function, maintaining consistency with the property's historical use. 6, relative gain to the public health, safety, and welfare versus hardship to landowners. The proposal will provide recreational opportunities, promote tourism, and generate economic activity. 7, recommendations of planning staff. Planning staff finds the CUP request reasonable and consistent with zoning regulations and the comprehensive plan. 8, conformance with the comprehensive plan. The proposal is consistent with the comprehensive plan, which encourages recreational development that enhances quality of life while preserving the rural character of the county. The proposed short-term cabin rentals align with these goals by providing low-impact recreation within a larger rural setting. Here we have the updated site plan. As shown, you can see the cabins are in purple. Here's the vicinity map. 13 letters were sent to property owners located within 1,000 feet of the site in Shawnee County and Douglas County. At this time, 1 letter was received expressing opposition. Staff recommends approval subject to the following conditions. The applicant must ensure that the driveways and turnarounds areas are adequate size to accommodate Shawnee Heights Fire District's apparatus. Documentation demonstrating compliance shall be submitted to the Shawnee Heights Fire District for review and approval. 2, the on-call manager must maintain an up-to-date list of campers and cabin occupants available to emergency responders upon request. 3, a designated severe weather shelter is to be identified to ensure adequate protection for occupants. The location of the shelter must be shown on the site plan. Details of the shelter shall be reviewed and approved by Shawnee Heights Fire District prior to operation. 4, the applicant must coordinate with cellular service providers to evaluate and improve cellular coverage, if necessary, to ensure reliable access to 911 services. 5, the applicant shall coordinate with Free State Electric Cooperative to determine the appropriate type and extent of electrical service required for the development. All necessary improvements or extensions shall be implemented prior to occupancy. 6, the applicant shall contact environmental health to determine the appropriate permitting requirements for wastewater management. If the site's estimated water usage is below 15,000 gallons per month, a county-permitted lagoon may be allowable. In that case, a soil profile test must be conducted to determine the required lagoon size. If water usage exceeds 15,000 gallons per month, a KDHE permit will be required. 7, the applicant shall coordinate with Douglas Rural Water District Number 3 to ensure the proposed water service is adequate for the development. If any additional meters or infrastructure improvements are required to meet the demand, they must be completed prior to operation. 8, the applicant shall coordinate with Kanawha Township in Douglas County to address use and maintenance responsibilities for roadways serving the site. 9, the applicant must operate in accordance with the business plan submitted on October 3, 2025. Any changes to the scope or nature of the business shall require review and approval through an amendment to the conditional use permit. 10, the applicant shall utilize the access route map submitted on June 26, 2025. This designated route must be published and clearly communicated to all guests and visitors. 11, AT&T has indicated that presence of buried copper within the right-of-way on east side of East First Road. The applicant must coordinate with AT&T before commencing any construction activities. 12, the applicant shall ensure the removal of the existing driveway at the intersection of 1500 Road and Southeast Woodring Road as required by Shawnee County Public Works. And that concludes this item.
Thank you. Do the commissioners have any questions of the staff? All right, then the applicant is to make a presentation.
Good evening. Lee Hendricks, 1800 Brickyard Road. I'm general counsel for Bettis Companies. Included in that is Hammond Partners, who is the applicant this evening. Thank you for putting that up, Reem. There has been, as Ms. Perez just stated, a unique trajectory to this application. I'm sorry. Laser pointer. Here we go. Unique trajectory to this proposal, and I think it's important. I know I spoke with some of you in September. Some of you I did not speak with, but I think it's important to walk through kind of what's occurred because it will, in many cases, answer some of the concerns that will be brought forth to you this evening, some of the concerns that were brought forth in front of the Board of County Commissioners last month. As discussed, this came in front of you in September, and in pre-meeting discussions and during the review by your staff, it was brought forth that, if I can do this on this, perhaps. Can you guys see that? I can't.
When you did off to the wall, it showed
Yeah,
up.
wall
I'm
you
wondering
can see,
if
but
the
not on the
TV,
TV.
yep.
We'll go old school. It was discussed by Shawnee Heights Fire Department that cabins which were originally discussed to be on this west side would be concerning to them because of access over that dam for emergency services. So prior to coming before you, after hearing that concern, we removed those west side cabins immediately. So yes, I would certainly agree with folks who have brought this up. The plans, the application did change prior to your meeting, but it was in response to the concerns that were brought forth by the Shawnee Heights Fire Department. After your last meeting, your meeting in September when I appeared in front of you, there was numerous concerns brought forth about the RV side of this application, namely the 44 possible RV spots. Those were located in this area on the east side. Discussions were had about concerns with RV traffic on Woodring Road, damage to those roads, and frankly, the itinerant nature of RV campers, concerns about safety and the like. Those were brought forth at that meeting. Between that meeting and the meeting with the Board of County Commissioners and my discussion with your staff, and in response to those concerns, we discussed the removal of those from the discussion points. That occurred prior to the October meeting. And so now we've gone from, as you saw earlier, 24 cabins and 44 RVs down to 15 cabins. I would state that 15 cabins is a max. And by that I mean I think we would begin with 5 and see what the demand looks like. I just don't want to come back in front of you if it increases to 10 or increases to 15. So RVs are out, west side are out. At that October Board of County Commissioners meeting, we knew going into that we were going to recommend removal of the item from the agenda and coming back in front of you. But still, that hearing goes on. And at that time, I didn't feel comfortable when the matter was called to speak or to respond because it hadn't been, we knew that the end result was that it was going to be sent back down. I just bring that up because there was about 30 to 45 minutes of comments, and I understand the commissioner's approach, but they allowed comment at that time, and I didn't have the opportunity to respond to any of those comments or concerns then. So I just want to bring those things forward to you this evening, again, so that perhaps it helps us in dealing with some of the issues that might come with the folks that are here tonight. One of those items was notice. As Ms. Perez discussed earlier, the applicant is not in charge of notice. It was your staff that sent that out. I know there were discussions about Monmouth not receiving notice, about certain neighbors not receiving notice. I appreciate those concerns, but that is not on the applicant. That is put forth by staff. And from everything I can tell, it was done correctly, but I just want to make it clear, notice was not on our side of the agenda. One of the things that was discussed ad nauseum at the October meeting was the fact that the scope of our proposal changed twice before the meetings, before your meeting and then changed again before the county commission meeting. I understand if those changes adversely affected the neighbors in a negative way. In this instance, I think it's clear we lessened the impact both times those changes occurred. So while I appreciate that an amendment, yes, did occur prior to each meeting, both times it was in response to concerns either from the Shawnee Heights Fire Department or from the neighbors themselves. If I had increased the impact to the site, I think I'd have more concern, and I would understand the concerns of the neighbors. But in this case, both instances, we lessened the impact. So I see, I think to claim that that was damaging to the neighbors is misleading and frankly disingenuous. Lastly, I discussed with your staff understanding, for 20 years I've sat in those chairs as counselor for entities like this. And I understand that when you're supposed to appear and hear a matter and change that, a lot of people do show up. And in this instance, at the Board of County Commissioners meeting, it was done during the workday at 8 a.m. I shared with your staff my concern on that. I can't send notice out, but I spoke with 2 neighbors and told them a week prior to that hearing, I understand this is still on the agenda, but it's our intention to send this back to the Planning Commission. And while you certainly have the right to be present and be there, I do not intend to argue the matter. The matter will not be pursued today. It will be sent back down in front of this body. In fact, on October 7th, I spoke with Tom Medill and specifically asked him if he was able to speak with some of these neighbors to discuss my plans, and he said they were well aware of the amendment and he would share my plan with the Signal group chat with these neighbors. So we did everything we could to try to inform folks that were showing up during their workday that that was not going to proceed that day. The claims that occurred both in front of you in September and in October, I just want to run through those quickly and discuss my thoughts and responses. I want to make sure we all recognize this is not a rezoning request. It is a request to allow a use pursuant to a CUP. And this is an approach that has been contemplated by your predecessors on this board and those who drafted your regulations. This is a use, while not identical, it is a use that this property was allowed to do previously, not only contemplated, but allowed in the form of a YMCA camp amongst all of these neighboring homes. There was a claim at the Board of County Commissioners meeting that it was just a western portion of the parcel, but we no longer own it, that was subject to the prior YMCA camp CUP. That is not the case. It is the parcel in question. Impact on roads. Those of you who were here last time may remember there was discussion on the impact on roads. There were multiple individuals who commented that these roads were for agricultural use, not RV or passenger use. I had a hard time understanding that, frankly. I think that agricultural use can many times be heavier than RV traffic and certainly passenger traffic. But I would state that in this instance, RVs are now off the table. So we are talking solely about passenger traffic for initially 5 cabins and perhaps up to 15. If there is wear and tear on the roads from passenger vehicles for 5 cabins, that is not an issue with our application. That is not an issue with Hammond Partners. That is an issue with those that are working the roads, whether it be Monmouth Township, whether it be Shawnee County. This is not high usage. This is very low usage, given what we're talking about. Deteriorating Woodring Road. This is a very valid concern that was brought forth by numerous neighbors last month. Northbound on Woodring, from the northeast corner of the parcel, if you take that road, there are portions of it that are dangerous and not good for RV use. I had discussed when I was in front of you last that in the event we proceeded with an RV park, that we would do everything in our power to ensure that no one came in or went out on RVs to the north. Again, RVs are no longer part of the equation here. We're talking about passenger vehicles only. We still would stress through no left turns coming out of the property and everything we could to try to keep those passenger vehicles off of that north portion of Wood Ring Road. But again, we're talking about passenger vehicles, not RVs, and a much lower number of them coming through. You know, road safety is a township and a county issue, not an issue for the applicant. Employee housing. This is something that's come up at both meetings. This is something that's come up on social media discussions on this application. I want to make it abundantly clear. This is not being used in any way for employee housing, for Hammond Partners, the applicant, for Bettis, or for any of the Bettis companies. That is a sexy comment to make online, a racy one that people might be attached to, but it is not a fact whatsoever. In our conversations with your staff, we specifically stated that a shorter duration of time to stay at the property, 14 days in this instance, with a 5-day off break, would further hopefully show folks this is not about long-term or even short-term housing for employees. I cannot state it enough. It might look good on Facebook or Twitter, but I'm telling you that is not what our intentions are with this property whatsoever. Safety and proximity to neighbors. Certainly one of the concerns, and I discussed this earlier, was the proximity of the RV park to the folks who live over in this area. Again, the RV park is now out of the question. What we're talking about is cabins at the center of a 120-acre parcel. These cabins would be located right here at the center of this parcel. And you can see the amount of tree lining we're talking about. Before I was here in front of you discussing how the trees along this road really block the view looking into the west. Well, now we're talking about all of this tree line blocking where this would be. And Mr. President, if you wouldn't mind, I just have a very short video I want to show you. Before you start, if you might, this is the northeast corner. As we were looking before, the northeast corner of the parcel, we are looking south down Wood Ring Road. This is where the entrance is at this time. One of the points, the requirements of this CUP is to move this entrance so it isn't confused with 1500 Road or directly across from this property owner's entrance. So this road would be made pretty much square and come out here in this spot. So while it's coming from the corner now, I can show you back on the GIS what the intentions are, if you wouldn't mind playing the video. What I want to express here is the distance we're talking about from this road. This is a row of trees you cannot see through but for where this gate is. But beyond that is a field of crops which will still remain during this time. You're traveling down this road. Now would begin the buffer that I'm talking about of trees that are blocking that from all of the neighbors to the east. Again, further down that road, now you can see where the lake would be. Again, as I discussed, the cabins would be right along this bank area. Gives you a bit of a look to the south and to the west, now to the north. Again, the separation with all of that tree line. Now you're looking due east. I think here's where my drone guy that was with me, I think he got a little overzealous. There might be a little spin here for those who get dizzy, but you can see that tree line I talked about along Wood Ring. And again, thank you, that road, if you go back to the GIS map, Mr. Perez, this road would be straightened in order to meet one of the requirements of your CUP that would go straight there. So you came in on that flight from there, but anyways there. I think it's important to show you this because if this isn't a reasonable site, You know, your regulations have contemplated the existence of a CUP of this nature on a property like this. And if it isn't allowed on a property like this with this kind of tree line around it, in the center of a 120-acre parcel, again, no RVs, just cabins in this area here and possibly here. If ever there was an application, this is the one. And if it's not this one, I question when a CUP of this nature that comes in front of you would be reasonable. I think you could serve on this body for 30 years and not have a situation where a low-impact project is this covered from all the neighbors all around it. Another concern, I would mention one last thing. Someone at the Board of County Commissioners meeting discussed dirt had already been moved. The project had already started. No dirt has been moved. No projects have started. I think some folks have been there fishing, but you can, hopefully you could see from that there's no excavation. Nothing has occurred on that parcel to date, and you can tell from that video. That video was shot last week. Another item that you heard 2 months ago was water service to the property. There were multiple individuals who stated that they had family who had attempted to get a water meter or a benefit unit in this area, that they were told that there was no more left, that it was some deal that Bettis had in order to get this when others couldn't. I want to be abundantly clear. Prior to coming in front of you before, we were told specifically by Douglas Rural Water 3 that at 44 RVs and 24 cabins, there was sufficient water service with a single meter to serve all of those folks. We are now down to, at most, 15 cabins, 5 being the initial approach. One water meter is still more than sufficient to satisfy that. I verified that again with Douglas County Rural Water District number 3. And in fact, we went over and purchased 2 benefit units. So there's no doubt about availability. Those are in our possession. And water is not, there may be things that come forward this evening. Water availability is not a matter for discussion this evening. Hunting rights. Tim Fritz is the property owner to the north. He didn't state this to you at your meeting in September, but in October he stated to the Board of County Commissioners that he had comments with a game warden who had recommended a 200-yard buffer for firearms. Stated that he had hunted on his property to the north there, and that that was the recommended buffer. I'd like to think we all recognize this, but if we don't, if my client chose it could build a home right here, or right here, right on that property line tomorrow, with no need for any sort of conditional use permit or anything of the sort, it can have a residential property here or anywhere on the property, just like any of the neighbors can on an A1 property. So to claim that there should be some sort of hunting buffer from the north property to ours is ludicrous. There is no right, should I and my son choose to go out on that property and fish, we have the same right. The right for some neighbor to hunt firing onto that property does not trump our right to peaceful use of our property. So while I understand that might be how that property is used, certainly without a CUP, without anything in front of this board, a home could be built right up on that property line, legally and with no question. And we all agree you shouldn't be firing into your neighbor's home. Now, while I'm saying there's certainly more distance from here to there, I would still be concerned about someone who thinks it's allowed to fire into your neighbor's property, whether you're in the county or not. Dangerous proposition, and one that I was very concerned about when it was raised previously. Those are just a few of the claims that were raised, and I no doubt will be raised this evening. What are we left with? This is a not in my backyard matter. And that's okay. I understand not in my backyard. I think it is fair of neighbors to say this is not a project we want on the property next to us. And I wouldn't ever argue against that. But by the same token, we have the right, as a property owner of this 120 acres, to apply for such a use. The county, through its regulations, has contemplated such a use. And as I said, if not, in this instance, a 120 acre parcel in the center of it, with an impact not being 44 RVs and 24 cabins, the impact being 5 cabins, and at most 15 cabins. If not there, then I don't know what instance it makes sense. We've twice taken comments and considerably reduced the impact of the project, significantly, in response to what folks here had asked for. You know, one of the claims that has been made at both meetings and online is that the Bettises don't care about Shawnee County. This is not, the Bettises don't live here, this isn't their neighborhood. They don't want to be a good neighbor. Someone who doesn't want to be a good neighbor pushes forward with this plan full bore, doesn't listen to the comments we've discussed, and doesn't take the impact from 44 RVs and 24 cabins down to 15 at most. A good neighbor doesn't, a bad neighbor doesn't do that. The Bettis Sports Complex here in Shawnee County, that isn't near the Bettis homes. Does that make it less of a benefit to the community? I think we'd all agree that's not the case. This is a unique property, you can tell from the video, and it is one that is not found in many places around the county. They came to me and said, this is our vision for use by citizens of this county and otherwise. We have attempted to make it as reasonably sized as we can to meet the demands and concerns of the neighbors. And I think that's abundantly clear with our revised application. I truly appreciate the comments of the folks that are present, and I think that proof positive of that appreciation is the fact that we've repeatedly amended this to try to make it something that is amenable to neighbors as possible. I just hope that as you hear these additional comments, we focus on the facts and what are truly matters at stake in this, and not Facebook comments or things that are put forth in the hopes that they'll get clicks and get views, when I've made it abundantly clear many of these matters just aren't at stake whatsoever. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you again, and I will stand for any questions once the comments are made by the neighbors. Thank you.
Do the commissioners have any questions at this time?
I have a question. I understand the road in question from which this will enter, it's Southeast Woodring Road by Shawnee?
That is the north-south road, yes, sir.
Yeah, is that Shawnee County and Douglas County have the same name? I thought I saw something else, but that's the questionable road. That's the road we are talking about.
Well, that is one that is the county line.
Okay.
And as far as questionable, what I would say, it is the one on the east side of the property, but the part that the neighbors, and again, I've driven it many times, are justifiably concerned about is northbound. There are two very low water areas that could be dangerous, but are dangerous for all the folks who own homes north of there as well. Again, with RVs, I completely understand it. Taking RVs out, I'm not as concerned.
So my question is there any kind of confirmation of which county is going to take responsibility for that road?
For maintenance?
Yes.
I think I'd probably ask you guys that question. I'm not 100% sure.
Is that a question for us? Woodring Road is already under maintenance, and I believe it's Monmouth Township for the portion that's maintained by Shawnee County. Anything that's maintained by Douglas County or their townships, I'm not 100% certain, but Monmouth Township is the one who maintains Woodring Road along this area.
Okay. It's just that the road seems to be somewhat of an issue that we've heard in the past as far as its condition. And you haven't talked to either county in regards to maybe the prospect of upgrading the road somewhat, at least, gravel or whatever.
I certainly think had the plan proceeded with RVs, that would have been a necessity. There is discussion as one of the requirements of the CUP from your staff that that conversation occur. I think any improvement that can occur on Woodring Road benefits not only the folks that would be using this property, but also the folks that live along that road. But with the traffic being passenger cars to initially 5 cabins, I'm not as concerned as I was before. And again, we would stress in every way possible that any traffic leaving here does not go north. I mean, there would just be a no left turn, everything is south over to 69. That conversation is a part of the CUP, but certainly I think it is less of a concern when we're talking about minimal passenger traffic versus 44 RVs at a time. Yeah,
But that conversation hasn't happened yet.
it has not happened. No.
I will point out, though, that anytime we have these applications, we do send them out to all of the appropriate entities, and none of those entities have approached us requesting any sort of update. So that's not a requirement, or that's not a condition that we've placed on the applicant, because that hasn't been requested by any of the entities to us.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you.
I have a couple of questions.
Yes, ma'am.
At one point, you said, or in our information, it said 12 cabins as a maximum, but that's changed to 15,
Correct. So.
but starting with 5.
That's right. When it was reduced from 24, when it was here and here, reduced from 24 to 12, and then the 44 RVs. We took the RVs off, and then like I said, I'm not a betting man, but I don't think 15 occurs unless it's a really popular spot. But again, I don't want to come back in front of you. I don't want to say 12 or 10,
understand.
even though I don't think so, because I don't want to come back and add 3 later. So
Yeah.
that's correct.
And in your business plan, do you prohibit firearms? Or is that
I would certainly
addressed?
say it's prohibited. The question legally, it just becomes what can and can't we do for someone who enters there? You know what I mean?
I know, you can't frisk everybody. that-
Correct, correct, yeah. But again, I want to double down on that earlier firearms comment. Is really concerning to me is, again, we have the right to peaceful enjoyment of that property. And that would be the same of any guests who were to come to that property. And I'd have a real difficult time understanding how, just as your neighbors, should you live in the county, can't go firing with the concern of a bullet going onto your property, the same applies in this instance. Whether it's a single home that is completely allowed by the law as it stands now, or up to 15 cabins will be allowed by a CUP.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Oh,
In the plan, you mention that someone can rent the property for 14 days, and then they have to vacate the property for 5 days.
Correct.
So how will you, or is this something you can even ensure if I rent it as Rosa Cavazos,
Mhm.
and my significant other rents it as Joe Smith, but the first 14 days is under my name,
Yeah,
but Joe Smith, we're not married, or,
sure.
how, is that an issue? Has that been thought of?
I
Because
mean-
then that's 30 days.
Yeah.
Nobody's leaving technically.
Right. I mean, I think you could use that. We model these off of Shawnee County's, or rather off of Shawnee Lake's policies in an effort to try to find something that, if you ask why, we could say we're just trying to find something that's been used and proven as valuable. There are always, I can always find a roundabout way to get around that. You're right. And there is no way I could stand here in front of you and say definitively that if Joe Smith is there for 14 days, that Ann Olson doesn't show up and do it. But I guess what I would say is you will have a manager who's on the property, and I think it would be determined pretty quickly when the same vehicles are there, the same people are being seen, things of that nature. And frankly, that 5 days, we discussed that as an effort to try to thwart the concerns about employees. If we made it 10 days as a term of the CUP, wonderful. I don't have any problem with that. I'm trying to show things that are just not a factor in this, and that employee one is not one of them. But I think that, someone could get around that at Lake Shawnee or anywhere else, given the approach that you had. The only thing I would say is that would be up to management. With a smaller number of cabins, I think management would have the ability to say, boy, this looks like the same people. Do they catch it on the 15th day? No. Do they catch it on the, before the 30th? I bet so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
What was my other question? I had one more. It'll come back
you think of it,
eventually.
I'll be back.
Yeah, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
is it gonna be open during the winter time as well?
That's our intention.
Okay,
That's our intention. My guess would be, it would not be much of a draw. So I say that now to leave the option open, but I could certainly see a situation where if it's up and running and we find, boy, come this weather, there's just a dip, that wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to have a manager out there for one property or two. And that's when I get a little concerned about the nature of the tenant that is staying there at the time. So it could be something where we say this is closed between the months of November 1 and March, or whatever the case may be. But at this time, we haven't limited it.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I got one question for you,
Yes.
or maybe, I'll see how you feel about it, maybe Joni can answer it.
Okay.
But so under present use, we're saying that this is a continuation of basically a CUP from Hammond Park to a recreational destination. Do we have any indication, since 1981, in the last 10 years, is it being used as a recreational park for the YMCA regularly?
Well, it was while they owned it, and I want to make sure I'm clear on this. I stress that it did have a CUP, it has a CUP on it, but it was for recreational outdoor activities,
Mm.
fishing, hiking, camping, but not cabins. That is
Yeah.
certainly a new element, just
Okay.
as RVs was as well. I think it's important to recognize that those who sat in your chairs before you realized this property and the value of the property and had to have that CUP once your regulations were passed, because it was in violation under the regulations, and then they allowed it under the CUP. Is it exact? No, but is it similar? Certainly. The uses are similar.
I would also point out that this is not a continuation case. It's not that we're trying to suggest that it was used in the same manner and that they're just applying to continue to use it. If that were the case, they would have had to come back and ask for a conditional use permit. They could have just used it. That special use permit, like Mr. Hendricks said, was put into place and it was used in a certain way. We propose or utilize the information about Camp Hammond for historical context so that people can see and understand what parcel it is we're talking about, how it's historically been used. Memory lane, there are plenty of people in the county who have been out to Camp Hammond or had been out there or utilized it when it was the YMCA camp. We use those for planning purposes so that we can portray which property it is that we're talking about and why it is that they're choosing to utilize it for this particular use.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. Then the chairperson will open the public hearing at this point. And I just want to remind everybody that speakers are limited to 4 minutes each. Remember to state your name and address and sign in before you speak.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ken Corbett. I'm a representative. These people called me a while back and said, we'd like to get together with you. There's something we need to talk about. That's the only reason I'm here. Some of the concerns that was brought to my attention, that you're going to hear tons of this tonight. What do they rent for? Are they commercial or residential taxes? That was some of their concerns. It'll come out later. But the water issue seems to be big on their agenda. One person will probably say tonight he tried to get a water meter turned down, and then they found 2 more. If you've got 15 units, you would think you'd have to have 15 meters. That was their concern. So for some of you who are not old enough, back in the 50s and whatever, Kansas went through a drought. And they had to drill county wells to get water. And from what they tell me, I don't know this, but this project goes through, there'll be no more water meters for their area. And that's the issues they brought to me. It's something to think about, and I'll stand for questions if you'd like. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jose Castillo. I live on 7946 Southeast 69th, which is directly south of the proposal. First of all, the planning committee made a determination that the proposal met the golden factors. I have to take a closer look at the proposal. As the golden factor test, I respectfully disagree with their conclusion. Character of the neighborhood is single-family dwellings, agricultural. This right here will stick out like a sore thumb. They're trying to put 15 dwellings on one property. You know, we have neighbors that have attempted to put one building in their property and was rejected. So, you know, to me, you know, that's not right, that's not fair. In addition, you know, what is the comprehensive plan for the county? You know, for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years in the future, does this meet that plan? We have never been provided with any type of plan. Then we're looking at what is gained by this. Nothing is gained by it except by the Bettis. You know, yes, our fears are that it's gonna be used as a labor camp. You know, they actively are recruiting H-2B workers. You know, I don't have any proof that that's what they're gonna use it for, but once they get those workers and they start housing them there, who's gonna monitor them? It's them that are monitoring the situation. Of course, they're not gonna call themselves out on it. And as you indicated, yes, they can put one name on the reservation. 2 weeks later, they can change it. I know that because I worked in Shawnee County at the lake, and that's what they attempt to do. And, you know, and we call them out on it, said, no, you have to move. Here, it's them guarding, it's like living the fox guarding the hen house. Again, there's no real oversight on this. You know, and so yes, we don't know who's gonna be there. We have women, children that are out there, that are either playing or walking out there. You know, we don't know who's staying there, who these men are that are gonna be there. You know, as you know, when people go home and they try to wind down and you have these workers there, they're gonna be out there, they're gonna be drinking and probably even have drugs with them. So that is a major concern for us out there. You know, so what I'm asking is, you know, don't do this to our neighborhood, to our community. We have major concerns. I have pictures here of the road, the way it is right now. They're proposing 15 cabins, 2 cars per cabin, that's 30 vehicles. You look at the way our roads are right now. You know, yes, I'm passionate about this because I'm out here, I moved out there 23 years ago and built my house out there because I wanted to be away from the city, away from business, commercial properties. I wanted to enjoy my nature, the solitude, and this is gonna be a total disruption of that. Thank you, and I'm sorry if I get a little emotional, but this is where I live, this is where my neighbors live. You know, this is what we want. You know, all we ask is to let us live our lives the way we've been living it. We have somebody that's coming out there that doesn't even care about it. They're gonna just cram this down our throats because they can. Thank you.
I'm Aaron Hoffman, 6645 Southeast Woodring Road. I said it before, I'll say it again. There's not one person in front of me that would want this in your neighborhood. There's just not. So if you vote for this, that just tells all of these people you do not care, because it's not affecting you. So that's why I'm actually confident that I'm looking at pretty normal people up here and I'm thinking you'll probably vote against it. We chose to live, unlike him, 23 years ago, 7 years ago, I decided to move my family out there, and it's pretty sweet. You know, this doesn't look like maybe a lot of people. If this was happening in Sherwood, where we moved away from, it would be down the halls and everybody would be like, what is going on? They want to put an RV park right in the middle. I paid how much, $1 million for this house next to the lake, and they want to put a, so yeah, it'd look a lot different, but this is a lot of people from the community. And we need to forget the economic benefits that this would bring to our area. I guess our kids can have a lemonade stand, finally, I guess. I mean, there's no economic benefit. They want 5 cabins. I'm just thinking, I'm not super smart, didn't go to college. I am a business owner, but I'm not saying I'm a great one. Have you thought of, I don't know how much that property's worth, but if you've ever looked into opening an Airbnb, and how many, what, at least a couple $1 million for this property, I'm guessing? You want 5 cabins, you have a maximum night of 14 nights. Who out there is paying $700 a night for this premium location for a 2-bedroom cabin up to 14 days? No, you're in Kansas. This is not a hot spot. You're gonna get $150 a cabin, probably. I mean, if you're staying for 14 days, who in Colorado is going, yeah, we're going to Barryton to stay at this lake? How much you got? Why do you want only 5 cabins? Maybe it's because you want your foot in the door. Because this is your toughest battle. I get it. He's doing a good job. He's got his neck on the line. He's got somebody to answer to because he's a performer. We are preserving. Performer, preservers. We're trying to keep the area how we moved out there for. That's all I got.
Hi, my name's Tim Fritz. I live at 5937 Southeast Woodring. Just wanted a little bit of a rebuttal on their council's diagnosis of my shooting buffer. Yes, someone could build a house there. They could build 3 houses there, but us as neighbors, we stay in contact with each other. We know where people are at. I mean, let's not blow smoke. Everybody in here knows what's gonna happen with these. They're gonna be a work camp, and they're 2-bedroom cabins that are mobile. You can pick them up with a forklift and move them wherever you want. 2 bedrooms, how many bunks can you fit in there? So with a house being built, or 3 houses being built on that frontage, I'm dealing with 1, maybe 2 hunters that I stay in contact with every day, and not dealing with 66 people who may want to hunt that I don't know nothing about. So with that being said, we're just like everybody else. You know, we got almost $1 million wrapped up in this property. And to watch my property values go down is not something I really care to do. We had a PowerPoint prepared tonight, but we were told that we could not present our PowerPoint, which I realize now that was a farce. So with that, I'd just like to say, please cut us some slack. Thank you.
My name's Jerry Edmonds. I live at 1468 East First Road, Barrington, Kansas. This is my house and property. This is my mother's. This is Mitch Nerl. And if you look at there, they have roads all over in these streets. Venice put asphalt millings all over. One of them goes about right there by Mitch's house. Okay? Cannot says, does it say that you can't add more anywhere? That's got to be cut off. And I really noticed the lawyer with these drones flew along this road, but he stopped right here. He says that we're all gonna be here. This is a retention pond, and this is a real sharp hill. This is a real sharp hill. I'm afraid for Mitch and his family more than I am myself, concerned about myself. Yeah, the migratory workers, that's the thing we're worried about. There is not enough water to serve all those houses and not take it to where we have low water pressure and can't use our own stuff. I don't care what the water district says, it can't have anything smaller than a 6-inch water main. And that would either have to run across Mitch's property or my property. That's not gonna happen either. Thank you.
My name is Jim Modig. I live at 1554 East 1 Road. It's about a half mile south of the Camp Hammond, or a half mile north of the Camp Hammond property. I just want to go on record to say that I'm opposed to the change in use permit. I've lived at this site for 32 years, this house, and we plan on living there a good many more years, we hope. What concerns me a little bit is even though it's now down to 15 cabins, that's going to be additional impact on the roads. That's going to generate about 30 more vehicles, which is about an 80% increase in traffic that's there now. You've already heard about the bus turnaround. That's a significant concern in terms of the safety of those children. And the bus can only go halfway in from roughly 69th Street to 61st, something like that. They can't go across the low water bridges, so they have to turn around and come back out to the south to complete their bus route. The other thing is the change in the environment. You can't go from a rural agriculture environment that is single family homes on individual lots and then add 15 cabins in a small area. That's a change in density. It's a change in type of occupancy. Those are transients. They're not people that have ownership. They don't have the pride of ownership and taking care of everything. So I'd like to basically say in closing that I am opposed to this and ask for a favorable vote for us who are our community patrons for this area. Thank you.
If there's going to be a security issue, we will address it and ask people to leave. I'm not looking at you. I was looking at the woman in front of you. Please stop, because we can't ask you to leave.
Good. Good evening. My name is Kyle Latham. I live at 1542 Ewan Road, Barrington, Kansas. I know, like, when you guys went over the golden factors and how they met all the golden factors, most of that was based on the history of Camp Hammond, it seemed, when it used to be a YMCA camp. They bought this property not as a boys' camp to continue in the same continuous use permit it was originally designated for. This is basically a subdevelopment that will have people come and go, no part of the neighborhood. How anyone can say that this meets these factors does not fit the reality of the neighborhood, from character to safety or relative gain to the neighborhood. In fact, there is absolutely no gain for anyone that lives in the neighborhood or surrounding community where the roads will be used from all directions. Both townships that maintain the roads, Kanwaka and Monmouth, are strongly against this proposal due to the already poor road conditions. If this passes, it could lead to more building, setting a precedent further disrupting the balance and character of a rural, residential, and agriculture neighborhood, compounding every one of the factors that they did not satisfy. If this gets passed, everyone will be affected on the road and within a few miles, and not in a positive way. Property values, noise pollution, safety, like I said, not a single golden factor has been met. They will be the ones in charge of the campsites, no oversight or overseers, and they can do what they want once they get a permit and approved. If this is denied, then no one is hurt. Bettis can still use the property like they have for the last several years, just like all the other neighbors do. They are now not out anything. No financial loss if it is denied, while on the other hand, everyone else will be affected negatively if it is approved. Thanks for your time. Please vote for denial and not pass this for one individual's business endeavor who has so many others and who won't hurt financially one bit, unlike the harm that will be done to all those who live nearby for years to come. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Pat Walmsley. I live at 1568 East 1 Road, which is about 3/4 of a mile north on the east side of the road from the proposed development area. One of the things that was mentioned earlier by the representative for the project was that when Tim Fritz mentioned at the county commission meeting about the 1,000-foot barrier, there's been a little bit misconstrued. What that actually was that when you call that a public access as a campground, there is a restriction under Kansas state hunting regulations. If there's public access, you cannot fire a weapon within 1,000 feet of that. If that was considered a public access campground, that would affect negatively Tim Fritz's entire south property line that is the entire north boundary of this. That is when Wildlife and Parks recommended if it was considered as a public access, which I do not believe it will be considered as a public access. That's why he was trying to get clarification. When he says that they have minimized all the time on this, that every time they have minimized the impact on the neighborhood, we appreciate the minimization of the impact, but it's kind of like shoving a knife in 8 inches and pulling it out 4 and acting like you did a favor for me. One of the things that I see here in this room is a tremendous amount of support of people that are not for this, that are opposing this project. I would like to see a number of hands of the people out here that are supporting this project. To the best of my knowledge, there's one. The people that are opposing it have taken time off from work, even though we were supposedly contacted. A lot of us took up time for work because there was not a definitive answer of what would be voted on at that county commission meeting. The individuals that came here in support are paid to be here. He is paid to be here. One, these individuals in support of denying this are paying to come here with their time, with their money, with their efforts, and with their sleepless nights because they're going to see their property values devalued. I've lived out there for 25 years, and I've called the law numerous times. There's been trash cans stolen and lit on fire, and it's never people in the neighborhood that are doing this. This is a very desolate road, and I would agree, this is a very beautiful area out there, but let's leave it that way. If in the very first meeting it was proposed at 67 units, it was stated this is not a money-making scheme. And then it went down in number, and then it went down in number. Now we're down to 5 and up to 15. If it's not a money maker at 67, where are you gonna make money at 5 or 15? So again, you gotta look at what's the motive for this. The thing that I keep hearing is that 30 minutes away with a site supervisor, and then I hear there's gonna be a manager on site that's gonna determine whether or not if people are staying for longer terms or not. Is there gonna be a site manager on site, or is there a site manager 30 minutes away? Who's gonna monitor the sound? Who's gonna monitor the animals? Who's gonna monitor the fire pits? Who's gonna be contacting law enforcement? Who are we supposed to contact when we have conflicts with these individuals? You look at the aspect of, somebody said that this provides us financial opportunities. Somebody addressed it. Where are those financial opportunities? There's financial opportunity for one person only, the owner of that property. And as the previous one said, if you deny this, nobody gets hurt. Everybody goes on. We all own our land. There's people that have been out there since the 1860s taking care of this land directly across from this property. You've got somebody here that's owned this for 7 years that wants to come out there and upset the entire neighborhood. When it was YMCA and campground, I can understand a conditional use permit because that's a good use. Let's get the kids outside. Let's teach them archery, hiking, hunting, healthy habits outside. That's not what we're looking at here. This isn't for children. This is for grown adults. They talk about they're going to put signs up there when you go out to say, oh, you can't turn left. How did you get there in the first place? Every one of you that drove out there, if you did, plugged it into your phone like everybody else does with the GPS. And if you live west, east, or north of 1600 Road, which is 53rd Street, or east of 1 Road, which is Wood Ring Road, or west of that, north, that is going to bring you up the level of road, that's going to bring you up the stretch of the road that the attorney has agreed is unsafe. The United States Postal Service has discontinued service on that portion of the road because it's unsafe for their carriers. I understand that, yeah, so he says maybe this would improve the roads. Kanawha and Monmouth has both said they are not going to dump any more money into maintaining those roads. And I agree, we've taken the RV aspect out of it out. But every one of us neighbors knows how to drive that road, and we know each other. And we slow down at the top of that hill. One of the things that's never been addressed, are there going to be any ATVs, UTVs, ETVs allowed in this whatsoever? Got people running up and down that road up there. We don't know who they are. Again, who do we call? Who's going to monitor the fire pits? When you've got fires out there, you've got 30 minutes away for fire of any time. I appreciate your time, and I would appreciate you guys. I am opposed to this, and I appreciate you turning down this once again like you did the first time. Thanks for your time.
Good evening, my name is Nancy Sexton. I live at 1498 E First Road. Our driveway is right in line with the north entrance onto the Venice property. I want to say that I'm opposed to building the recreational camp there. Mostly it is security. We have had issues in the past since Venice has owned it. They had family members come out and riding their UTVs up and down. It scared our cattle, almost injured the husband. We've had to call the sheriffs because of people not on the Venice property but along the road doing meth, brewing the drug. I just want to say I oppose it. Thank you for your time.
My name is Barbara Narum. I live at 6423 Southeast Woodring Road. I'm 80 years old. Can't hear too good, can't see too good. I'm hoping that you guys can hear better and see better than I can. I'm hoping you can see through what's going on here. I'm worried about my safety. I'm living right next to where this is going in. This is my backyard. I have a picture window. I can see the lake. The driveway is going to be coming right in, almost next to my driveway. I live with my son. He's going to watch, so I'm not going to get out of control here. I'm going to stumble over my words here, probably. I'm worried about the safety. I'm worried about my safety. This is in my backyard. I probably will get out of control here. We have teenagers in our household. I live with my son and daughter-in-law there. They invited me to come live with them. Thank goodness for them. They invited me to come live. I like it there. I don't want it to change. I can see all of this change. There's a lot of foliage. It's all dropping now. I can't see people living in those cabins in the winter. In the middle of winter, we've had power outages. I can't see people living there in the winter time. They'll be without power. How are they going to heat themselves? How are they going to live there, get in and out, get groceries? It could be days without power. How are they going to survive? Are they going to be knocking at my door? Are they going to be hopping over the fences? Are they going to be looking in my picture window? I like to watch the sunset come down. Are they gonna be looking in my picture window when I'm watching the sunset come down? Do I pull my drapes? Do I open my door when I hear a knock? We got dogs that will protect us. We've got guinea hens. Are the alarm is gonna be going off all the time? Guinea hens go off all the time, making all this noise. Are my alarms gonna be going off all the time? Are the dogs gonna be barking all the time? Is my life as I know it gonna change? I don't know. Can you see through this? The meters? How did they get meters? And was I causing a little ruckus back here? Yeah. I want to be heard. Can you see through this? There's some underhandedness going on here. Somebody's got to see something going on here. It's not right. There's something wrong.
I'm Robin Edmonds. I own the property at 1452 E1 Road. I looked it up this evening. My family has been there since 1967. Excuse me, 57, sorry. 67 years. And Bettis people don't really realize what a pain in the neck having that thing back along the road there that is not watched. It's closed now. If you open the gate and allow the public in, the traffic's going to be terrible. We have very slow time and responsive of law enforcement there, and I'm opposed. We'll stop with that. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mike Stewart. Pardon my voice, I have got a cold, and I apologize for that. I'll try to be as clear and succinct as I can. My wife and I moved out to 61st and Stubbs in 1991, so that's about 35 years ago. And we were the border of Camp Hammond on the north, and then, of course, later Bettis has sold off that part, and another person has established a home on the west part. This is the east part of that property that you're talking about. Because I went out there as a little kid and stayed overnight, I've always loved Camp Hammond. And so as my adult life proceeded, into the mid-40s and 50s, I volunteered through a friend named Bruce Holt, who worked at the Y, to be part of the Camp Hammond mission for taking little kids out. And so since about, and I can't tell you the exact year, somewhere in the mid to late 80s, I've been on the Camp Hammond board for the YMCA. Had its own board. The North Y had a board, the Central Y had a board, and Camp Hammond had a board. I was also the president of that board for quite a few times. During that period of time, we had a lot of events for kids, but we never did have, and I want to clarify a little bit here for you. We never did have any vehicles in this area at all for camping. Camping was all done over here in tents, and then in about the 1990s, we did establish this board 3 primitive campsites, tents only, and those were located here, and about here, and about here, in these 3 dips, right there and there. Fellow board member named Ron Brown, member of the Peak Police Department at the time, and also a retired Marine, brought his Marine troop out there and cleared all that brush and created 3 campsites. But those, like I said, were only tent camping, so there's never been any vehicles on that side from the Y business, except during the time when there would be day camp established, they would take the bus into the swimming beach. Swimming beach right here. And they would use that old road and park the bus right there and let the kids out. And then they would swim. There was never overnight for that. Take them back either up to the cabins, because in that eastern half, there were cabins that had been there from, I guess, the day they first got to camp. So my wife and I like the solitude. We sit on the patio every night and watch the deer, honestly. and sometimes turkeys, occasionally coyotes, bobcats. We also have rattlesnakes and copperheads. I've managed to catch 4 copperheads on my patio in 30 years. Not that that's a big risk, but it's something else to be considered. Some people don't much like camping among the snakes. We're opposed to this simply because it violates 2 or 3 things that we consider kind of values. One is the original intent of the camp was always to be a pristine wilderness place and for use for kids. I know that the family who owns it now could easily donate it to a couple of different entities where that could be preserved. I also, like the state has a program for managing properties. If it no longer fits their need or want for a recreational place, which is why they originally bought it, and you know, they used to run their quad runners all over the place, and we could hear them and all that, and it was kind of a little bit of a disturbance of the sound, but they usually quit in the evening, and so I'd like to see them do something like that. All the projects that they have done have benefited the community in which they were located. For example, the baseball park.
Time.
At, the lake, beautiful stuff. But I don't think this project would demonstrate any kind of value for the community in which it's located. So my wife and I are both opposed. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mitch Sexton. I live at 1498 E1 Road, directly to the east of the proposed site. My family's owned that property. I'm now the 4th generation to either farm it or live on it. I've watched the area grow up from only a couple of houses to the houses we have now. All these people I thought were interlopers that came out, but now consider them all friends and almost family. Fortunately, I don't foresee that happening with this proposed campsite. These aren't people invested in the neighborhood. I don't see the value that it brings to our neighborhood. We've already had to close the Douglas County, the North 1500 Road. We petitioned Douglas County to have that closed because of people coming from town, tearing up and down the road. As my wife stated, stampeding cattle just about cost me my life. I'm not a good speaker. I apologize, but I'm just not happy with this. I'm concerned that it's going to just drive down our way of life out there, just having additional transient people, not employees, not workers, whatever, just folks coming in and out that we don't know, that we can't get to know. It just, I don't know. It just feels like it's just going to ruin our neighborhood. So I'm opposed to this, and I thank you for your time.
My name is Melody Claire. I live at 6530 Southeast Stubbs Road, 7.5 years, which is, I guess, kitty corner from the proposed location. Just to be clear, as a Mexican woman, I was born in the 70s, grew up in the 80s. I lived in Oakland for 30 plus years. So we were a very tight community because everyone knew each other. All the parents always kept us in line because we knew how it was. It was very old school. You know, if I did something wrong, my parents were going to find out about it. That's the reason why it was that. My husband and I both have 4 kids in this community, all attending all school levels. My son is a senior now. I have 3 daughters, 15, 12, and 10. My husband's goal was to give our kids the same upbringing we had as kids. He's given up time of his hard work, family time, weekends, holidays, everything to get us out into this community where we could live like we did as kids. That I could literally just let my kids go play in the woods, make forts, stay out all night, holler when my kids were ready, so we could live that life. It is because we know our neighbors, because we are all invested in our community and the schools, not for just a day, a week, 2 weeks, because we live there permanently. We deliberately paid extra money. We saved thousands and thousands of dollars to be able to live into a better community so that our kids could have the life that we did, that gives them the freedom to play, to be children off of electronics as we did. If this were to happen to our family, we would be limited to what we could do. That's all there is to it. We paid for our land because we wanted to invest in our family, in our community. But the people who would be coming, whether it be for cabins, RVs, from my understanding, he kind of flip-flopped in that a few times, where I heard, he said, it's not completely off the table, but for this discussion, it was as minimum as this, but probably maybe this. And again, I'm in agreement. If they get their foot in the door, who's to say what else will they require, more approval for that? My worry is that once that foot is in the door, there's no telling what can happen. So I leave you with 2 questions to ask yourself. If you lived where we lived, would you want that cabin place next to you? Would you be up here opposing it like we are? The second question is, if an entire community, which we are opposed to, if we are all opposed to this, why would you force this on our community? There's only one person to gain anything from this. There's an entire community that's going to not benefit, and we are going to be the ones paying it in the long run. Thank you.
Hello again. My name is Crystal Wesley Arrington. I live at 5829 Southeast Wood Ring Road. I'm one of the people that said it before, and I will say it again. I did not receive a letter regarding this conditional use permit proposal. However, that is because my property is located 2,000 feet away from the property, the proposed cabin rental site. So I'm not within the legal 1,000 feet requirement to notify. However, this is my children's bus stop, right across from the primary exit that they're moving down the road, where my 15, 13, 7, and 6-year-olds, 3 girls and 1 boy get off and on every single day. Moving this down slightly doesn't stop anybody from seeing a bus go back and forth with small children on it. So, just so you know, any instance of an assault, rape, kidnapping, or worse caused because you decided to allow this establishment of revolving neighbors happen, those extra 1,000 feet mean nothing. However, emotions aside, as you are not accustomed to make decisions based on concerned parents. So let's talk about the things that you do consider, the golden factors. The golden factors that were listed here, I'm actually quite surprised and almost baffled by the fact that this is outlined in the proposal, because if you actually look at it, it's more generalized responses made to satisfy checking the box on an application, guised as addressing community concerns. Apparently it fooled someone because it made it this far. So let's go through the actual facts, what the golden factors apply to on Wood Ring Road. One of those, the character of the neighborhood. It is a RA1 rural agricultural district, a low-density rural environment with limited infrastructure and services, a quiet rural lifestyle, space for agriculture or hobby farming, fewer neighbors and natural surroundings, protection from urban sprawl and dense development. The zoning and uses of nearby property, another golden factor. The RA Rural Agricultural District zoning is designed to preserve farmland and support agricultural activities while allowing limited rural development and to prevent encroachment by urban or non-agricultural uses. Land use here includes many legacy farms whose owners are not currently interested in urban encroachment. Another factor is the suitability of the property for current zoning. Well, the property is correctly zoned as an RA Rural Agricultural District. It is currently used as a recreational property with open pasture, consistent with the surrounding neighborhood and low-density residential uses. The CUP would change that substantially. Another factor is the impact of removing the zoning restrictions on nearby properties. While the proposed short-term rental, it would negatively impact the nearby properties by increasing traffic on rural roads, introducing noise and activity inconsistent with the quiet agricultural character of the RA1 district, and reduce the privacy and security of the long-term residents. Another factor is the length of time the property has been vacant under current zoning. And the property was bought in, I think, around 2018 and has remained unused, undeveloped, apparently for fishing, until by coincidence, this year, the Big Beautiful Bill Act brought tax credits to short-term rental property owners. I think that was enacted in July of 2025, and then we got this in August of 2025. Can I just make one more point that I have a lot more things to go over that I'm not going to be able to, but this whole side to the north here that is not going to be used, it's barely even usable by the people that live there. Whenever it floods, which it regularly does, as soon as it snows, there's an 85-foot hill drop. That's our emergency route to the south, to the people that live there. And you're asking for it to be worn down by people, short-term rental properties, 15 cabins, 2 cabins a day, 60 people a day, possibly. You're taking away our emergency route.
Greg Arrington, 5829 Southeast Woodring Road, and I oppose to this. Thank you.
Terry Adams, 6525 Southeast Woodring Road. I've lived out there, me and Joy have for 13 years. We moved out there in 2013. I can't really, everybody's covered everything that I was going to have and everything, but I want to say one thing that I know, well, I'm not on Facebook and I don't have access to Twitter or anything like that, and because I don't get into that, but I do practically know for a fact that this place, we don't need it out there. There'd be too many people, more traffic, and I know it's going to be a camp out there for workers. Thank you very much.
Bill Bonger, I'm the clerk for Monmouth Township. We maintain E1 Road, or Woodring Road, that mile section of it. We have a contract that signed years ago with Kanwaka Township, so we don't have to fool with the center line of the road. We maintain this section of road. They maintain the north part from 53rd to basically 61st Street. We also maintain 69th Street. A lot of people don't know this, but January 1st of 2027, Shawnee County is turning the road maintenance back to our township. So we're going to, with the additional traffic on this, we're going to have to fix these roads. We may not have the money to do it. We got a lot of other roads we got to get taken care of because the lack of maintenance currently. I'm also a bus driver for the school district, and I've been there for 15 years. We cannot go down over those low water bridges. Buses have to turn around. One time I had a route that was out there. So we are against it because of the additional traffic on our roads. Thank you.
Joy Adams, 6525 Southeast Woodring Road, Barrington, Kansas. Your representative says that that place is remote and it won't bother anyone. Well, you're talking about a revolving door of strangers coming out, coming and going, coming and going, coming and going, a revolving door. So it's going to affect someone, and that place is in everybody's backyard. I don't know how he figures it ain't going to bother anyone. The roads are bad. They're going to get worse with that much more traffic on them. You're devaluing our property. Increased traffic walking, for people walking, horseback riding, bicycling. And he's 5 to 15 cabins, don't matter? Well, it does matter, because that's that much more people, our revolving door of people coming and going, strangers in our neighborhood coming and going. Okay, and I didn't learn about it on Facebook either. I heard it through a roundabout way through the Bettises. Somebody knows somebody, somebody knows somebody, came from Bettis about the migrant camp. And there's plenty of ways you can get around. You've got to be out by this time. Oh, heck, we got 20 people in this cabin, we'll just put it in this one's name. So, and even if it wasn't a migrant camp, we don't want the strangers coming and going in our community, continuous, and driving on our roads. Alrighty. Yeah. Cell service when it's storming? Who gets cell service? Who gets cell? I mean, you don't even get a TV where we're at. So when it's storming, you have nothing. You're out there watching. So that's another safety issue. I don't know why you guys would pass this when you're affecting everybody. You're affecting a lot of people's lives and community. For one person, ought not be. And let's see. Oh, he says it's not going to be. Can we get it in writing tonight that it's not going to be a migrant camp? Thank you.
My name is Sean Clare, 6530 Southeast Stubbs. I've been there almost 8 years. My main concern would be the safety of the neighborhood. The presence of law enforcement is not out there, even when we request them. And the way that they state that there was going to be an on-site manager, they've changed this to an on-call manager. So we have no defined limits on when somebody's going to be there and if they'll show up and who to contact when there are issues. That's all I have.
Hi, my name is Christina Niram. I live at 6423 Southeast Wood Ring Road. I want to thank you all for your patience tonight. I know this has been long, and this is the second time we've had to go through this. Even though they have changed the plans, this still will negatively impact our neighborhood. The proposed of a CUP is to allow for flexibility in zoning by permitting special uses that are not a matter of right, but may be desirable for a community. This is not desirable for our community, as seen by all the testimony of the folks here tonight. This does not provide a benefit for the community at large either. There are so many campgrounds in the area that have larger lakes, lakes where you can keep the fish you catch, the easier access, and the list goes on and on. This benefits only one person, a corporation that makes plenty of money and doesn't need the proceeds from this to thrive. Thank you all for your time, and I ask that you deny this.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mitch Niram. I live at 6423 Southeast Wood Ring Road. I'm the property directly south. That is my wife. That is my mother. They all live there with me. Everybody has spoken on many concerns, valid concerns, I think. There are 4 key points that I'd like to address tonight. First, I'd like to talk about recusals. There's a vacant chair here this evening, and it's been never has been publicly declared that the vacant chair belongs to Chad Gearhart, and he's had to recuse himself because he is an employee of Bettis. He also manages the property in question directly to the north of me. He is the manager of that. Like I said, I'd like to get it on record that he has not recused himself. He is essentially not here to recuse himself. The fact that he manages a property listed as CU under the CU 25/03, which represents an obvious conflict of interest, not just for this issue, but for his role on the Planning and Zoning Board in general. It's important that every decision here be made without bias or influence, and this situation calls that into question. Second, past conduct. that has come to my attention and others in our little community. And I'd like to address the fact that it was stated before that somebody had said Bettis doesn't care about the community. I said Bettis doesn't care about my community. My community is Wood Ring Road, E100, 53rd, all the way down to 69th. That section of land, these good people here are my community, my extended family. It's being played out that I said Bettis doesn't care about the community. I said he's not a good neighbor because he is never present. I said he doesn't care about our community, the community that we have out there. We are on our own out there. We have problems, we help each other, we clear each other's trees. As somebody who's a little bit negligent in their duties, the Bettis property has 2 trees laying across the road that have deteriorated on the road for the last month. We remove each other's trees if needed, otherwise we remove them ourselves. It has come to my attention and to others in our community that Chad Gearhart has previously been seen operating side-by-side vehicle at a high rate of speed on Wood Ring Road, nearly causing an accident with a local resident. As the saying goes, future behavior can be predicted by past conduct. This raises serious concerns about judgment and responsibility, qualities that are essential when decisions like this are made on behalf of the public. He was on a side-by-side, came over that hill that everybody likes to play on Dukes of Hazzard style, catch some air and run down the bottom of the hill. He almost hit Pat Walmsley. Pat Walmsley was just exiting his driveway. I understand the allure of the hill, but holy hell, that's not safe. Third, the community opposition. Please take note of this petition. There are 79 signatures on this petition from that section of land, every one of them opposing this issue. The fact that these are here, if this measure goes forward, to me it shows a clear bias. If this measure goes forward with 79 people opposing, we stopped at the immediate area, the immediate section of land. We didn't go out into the community, all of Monmouth, like I had thought about doing. We stopped in the immediate area. 79 people oppose. There is not one single person that I think you will find that will be in favor of this. I'd like to point out, too, the Monmouth Township is against it, and Kanawaka has also been against it. They denied this. They don't want people driving up and down their section of the road that they maintain, and Monmouth doesn't want it. It's not the weight of the vehicle necessarily, it's the amount of the traffic that's coming through. Our little minivan tears up the road just as much as anybody else.
Time.
In a heavy vehicle. It's really too bad. 30 some odd minutes for the other guy.
I'm Tom Model. My wife and I own about 98 acres that pretty much is all of this here to butt up against the Bettis property. And when Camp Hammond was in operation, we had a lot of trouble with people trespassing, leaving trash, you know, just not respecting anything. And it's all fenced, I mean, it still is. I think that'll probably just start happening again. And Tim Fritz and I share a boundary too, and when we're gonna be shooting, we communicate with each other, you know, so we're careful with each other. There's people we don't know, I guess they won't know until they hear shooting. I don't know. Anyway, my wife and I we don't want it either.
Is there anyone else that wants to speak?
Anyone else in the overflow, no one else out there is here to speak, so she checked.
Okay. All right, very good, thank you. If there's no further comments from the public, then the applicant does have a chance for rebuttal comments.
Lee Hendricks for Hammond Partners. I will, I'll keep this very brief. I know the world we live in now. I know how people view applications like this, but not everything is an ulterior motive. Not everything has some hidden agenda. I did say last time I was here, I'm going to spoil the ending and tell you that this is not a money-making venture for Hammond Partners or for the Bettis companies. And certainly, when you reduce the number of rentable properties in the manner that we did, it makes it even less. What this was 3 children, Bettis children, who run these companies, who said, this is a beautiful piece of property that is getting very little visit, that is a benefit to the community, and what is a manner in which we can share that. That is the bottom line of why this came forward. You saw from that aerial what I'm talking about, and they said, what is a manner in which we can do this? When told by, in this instance, the neighbors and those who have opposed this, what their concerns were, all we have done is attempt to limit the amount of impact by reducing that. Not a money-making venture, it is a benefit to the community. Multiple individuals stated, once a foot is in the door. I'm not gonna spend much time on this, because if our effort is to get 15 and then sneak back in, guess what? We're back here in front of you doing this same thing again. And I don't think I'm gonna look very good if I'm coming in here having made promises that now I'm backing out on later. That is why I said to you, our intention is not 15 at this point, but I'm giving you that number so that you know that is the high mark in the event we do it. But if there is some change, you're gonna hear it again. This body's gonna have a vote. The Board of County Commissioners is gonna have a vote. And all of these folks will be back here again for that conversation. I said to you it's not an issue. I don't know how many ways I can say this. Claims of a migrant camp, employee housing. Look, very easily my client could plat this property, build homes, and put workers there, and not have to go through all this rigmarole. I wouldn't be coming in front of you numerous times or dealing with the arrows that I am. There are other ways to do that if that's what they wanted to do. It isn't. It is a benefit to the community. There are other manners to get employees in, and if that was the case, it sure as heck wouldn't be through this process. I don't know how many ways I can say to you, this is not for employees, that is not for migrant workers. Like I said, that is an exciting topic to put out there on social media or whatever it is, but that is not a fact. That is not the case in this instance. Water meters. I'm no civil engineer, but I know this. A civil engineer was contacted by Douglas County 3 specifically about the water that would be necessary to serve 44 RVs and 24 cabins, and was told, and even when we went down to 12, we revisited that and said, is a single benefit unit sufficient? I can't tell you why that is, but I know this. Twice I was told by the experts that it was sufficient. We purchased 2 benefit units specifically so I could say to you, we have that available. And in the event that we had to change course on this, at least I knew we'd have the ability to provide water to that property one way or the other. Roads. I don't know, it was stated that no matter where you put it in on GPS, that you're going to end up going down that dangerous north part of Woodring Road. I've come from my office in northwest Topeka. I've come from Lawrence. Both instances, I came in from the south on GPS. I don't know what to tell you other than that's exactly how I came into the property, and it would be something that would be stressed to anyone who's using it. You know, if this wasn't, I understand that it's a crutch, that some folks know that Bettis Asphalt or that the Bettis companies are a heavy highway company. But if this was Joe and Susie Smith who was in front of you on this application, I don't think anybody here would be asking what the applicant is going to do to fix roads for 5 to 15 cabins. They wouldn't. That's baked in because of the nature of the business we're talking about. But that is not something that we as an applicant are responsible for. Again, I think it's reasonable if you have 44 RVs that are constantly going to that property to say, look, this is heavy use on a community asset, and therefore that is something that should be looked at whether or not we should be responsible partially for that. We're talking about, as I've said numerous times, 5 to 15 cabins. This is not a massive increase or even a substantial increase of road traffic on those roads. And again, if it wasn't Bettis that was in front of this, the name, I don't think we'd be saying, so what will you do for the roads? I told you that the net result of this would be not in my backyard. And I told you that is completely fair for neighbors of this property to say, we don't want this here. Multiple people said to you this evening, look at this as if you're a neighbor. I would disagree. I don't think that's your job sitting in these seats to say, what would I do as a neighbor? I think emotions certainly come into this, but that's not the job that you guys have, and that's not the rules that you play by. Your job is to say, what is a reasonable allowance based on your regulations, the golden factors, and the recommendations of your staff, who, by the way, have recommended approval to this both times, both the more impactful version and now the much less impactful version. What is lost in the comments this evening is that I would wager a bet that not a single person here would want to be told what they can and can't do with their property. That is part of what's happening here, is it's a 120-acre parcel that we're being told, look, they can do whatever they want, but not this. We're being told what we can do. Now, we are in front of you for a CUP. We are not approaching this with a development or a home or something that is allowed specifically by an A1 district. But as I've said to you, I'm concerned, I would be concerned were I sitting in your shoes, that if you deny a CUP of this nature with the facts that you've had in front of you, with the limitation of impact on the property, with the surrounding tree lines and distance from all the neighboring properties, my concern would be that when other folks in the future consider a benefit to the community, and this is deemed not sufficient because of purely neighbors being upset, what instance will ever arise from a project of this nature that would be allowable under your regulations? I appreciate the opportunity to speak this evening, and I don't believe this had any other allowance for responses at this time. Is that correct, or do I?
You can respond to anything that was stated within the presentations or comments from the public.
No, I have nothing further. Thank you.
We will close the public hearing, and the commissioners may ask any questions or discuss. Does anyone have a question for staff or for the applicant?
No.
No questions? No questions? Would someone care to make a motion?
I would move to deny the conditional use permit.
I second that.
Who was the second by, Myron?
Is there any discussion? I always have to ask that because Robert's rule says that.
I appreciate Robert's rules. You know, I sit on a couple of boards, and I definitely choose not to get on social media because I don't want to influence the way I would vote or anything like that. So, being, being told that we, may have seen, or that these rumors have come up, I'd say that's the first time I heard it, because I choose to stay away so that I can keep very mindful of what is happening. This isn't my first planning commission to sit on. I sat on the city planning commission as well, and had some very tough decisions to make. And sometimes, the part with the emotions of neighbors and what was going to happen in their neighborhood was tough. And that's definitely something that, can pull at your heartstrings. And I happened to be one of the people that was on the planning commission when they were building Reesers at 6th and Croco, and had to sit for a 2 a.m. board meeting to to discuss how that was going to play out. And so I get everyone's emotions. I get facts that are presented to us, and so it isn't something that I take lightly at all in anything. I still sit here, and it's still a tough decision. Sitting on a school board when you have to decide whether you're going to mask students or not, and people are talking about those things. So I enjoy making the tough decisions. Otherwise I wouldn't be sitting here. And I really appreciate everybody coming out here and stating their feelings and the facts and emotions, and I definitely, plan to take all of that into consideration. And so just thank you all for being here. I know it's a long time, it's a lot of work, and for those of you that were at the commission meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning and took time off of work, everything does not go on deaf ears. So thank you for providing us with the information that you did, and thank you to the neighbors who came out. So that's all I need to say.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have comments. First of all, I would like to let all of you know that we have a fiduciary responsibility on the Planning Commission to look at everything. For those of you who live in the community, I am certainly sympathetic to your passionate pleas. That can't be what determines what we do and don't do here. We are governed by other principles and responsibilities. To Mr. Hendricks, I would say this. I'm not comfortable with the road situation. I've heard the passionate pleas, but they do not sway me. That road sways me.
Okay, I thought there was something else maybe after that.
Nope, done.
Okay, so if no other questions or comments, we have a motion and a second to deny. And just to clarify, if you vote yes, that means you're supporting the motion to deny. If you vote no, then you would be supporting approval. Myron Lenwetter,
Yes.
Dan Bryan,
Yes.
Jeanette Johnson,
Yes.
Chad Gearhart, Rosa Cavazos,
Yes.
Terry Robinson.
Yes.
With 5 members voting yes, the motion to deny has passed. So the recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners is that it be denied by the Planning Commission. The hearing on this in front of the Board of County Commissioners would currently be scheduled for December 8, 2025, at 9 a.m. at the 707 Quincy, which is where some of you had been the last time. So December 8, which is a Monday at 9 a.m.
We'll take a short recess before we hear our next item, but I do want to thank you for coming. I want to thank Mr. Hendrickson for all of the work that he's done and the staff as well.
The second agenda item is case number Z1001B Higgins Ranch LLC. A major amendment to amend the Building Stone and Landscape Villa Number 2 Master PUD plan to remove restrictions on C2 and C4 uses, adding I-1 zoning restricted for storage units, and also reconfiguring the property into 3 additional lots. Replatting will be through the city of Topeka, and replacing regional service, sewer service with an on-site wastewater system. It's located at 1041 Southwest Rock Road in Mission Township. It's about 23.77 acres. Here's the general location of the site. As you can see, the blue star. Some background. So in January of 2010, the applicant submitted a request to rezone the site from RR1 to a PUD with commercial usage. The master PUD plan divided the lot into 2 use groups. Lot 1 was Block A with a C4 commercial district, and then Lot 2, Block A, was a C2 commercial district. The project program defined limits on the uses that were allowed to go on those lots. Specific uses prohibited under the PUD were identified. There was an amendment, number 1, which ended up being a minor amendment, which was approved administratively. A minor versus a major amendments to a PUD master plan. So minor amendments are small changes that don't alter the overall intent of the plan. For example, a minor layout adjustment or landscaping updates. This is approved administratively by the planning director. A major amendment is something significant that conflicts with the original plan or exceeds the minor limits. For example, rezoning one of the lots. This follows the same process as the original PUD approval. So here we have a PUD major amendment. They're requesting the removal of the prohibited uses from the PUD under C2 and C4. They're wanting to incorporate I-1 limited to storage usage, unit usage as an option. They're wanting to do a new lot configuration, creating 3 more lots, changes in the project program to accommodate those new lot configurations, replacing the regional sewer service with an on-site wastewater system. Present use, so Lot 1, Block A is partially developed with an existing business, which is Higgins Stone Company. Lot 1, Block B contains a stormwater management easement, and the remaining area consists of vacant land. The proposed use, the applicant plans to evaluate interest in the property for development opportunities, specifically a convenience store and storage units. So here we have the proposal. I believe they're currently working with the city of Topeka to subdivide the site as shown. Here's the vicinity map. Property owners within 1,000 square feet. So 22 letters were sent to property owners within 1,000 feet of the site. No responses were received. Staff recommends approval of the request as submitted, subject to the following. The commission finds that the request satisfied the golden factors and recommends approval of the major amendment to the PUD, subject to the following conditions. 1, coordinate with environmental health to establish the minimum lot size for a convenience store use after usage factors and soil types, loading rates are determined if applicable. 2, obtain a comprehensive stormwater management plan addressing collection, detention, and control release of runoff throughout the subdivision. The plan must be submitted to Shawnee County Public Works for review and approval, and the applicant and/or developer must comply with all conditions of the approval prior to site development. Update the master PUD plan as applicable. 3, obtaining a comprehensive TIS, which shall in part demonstrate that no operational conflict will occur between the east and west access points, and that traffic will not queue onto Southwest Auburn Road. The TIS must be submitted to Shawnee County Public Works and KDOT for review and approval, and the applicant and/or developer must comply with all conditions of approval prior to site development. Again, the updated, they're gonna have to update the master PUD plan as applicable. Number 4, the applicant shall coordinate with the city of Topeka to complete the replatting process, creating the 3 additional lots. All minor plat requirements must be met, and the replat shall be approved and recorded prior to site development. 5, the applicant shall ensure that all proposed on-site wastewater systems are designed, permitted, and installed in compliance with environmental health standards and all applicable local and state regulations. Each lot must have its own individual wastewater system meeting these requirements. 6, for Lot 2, Block A, Lot 3, Block A, and Lot 2, Block B, each lot shall be developed under one of the approved options. Option A, C2 or C4, or Option B, I1, limited to storage units, provided all applicable development standards for the chosen zoning district are met. Each lot must be developed in accordance with the standards of a single zoning district. Update the master PUD plan as applicable. Prior to issuance of any building permit, the property owner shall provide written documentation to the Shawnee County Planning Department identifying the zoning designation for each lot. The approved zoning must be reflected on the site development plan, which shall be submitted to and approved by the Planning Department prior to commencement of any development or issuance of any building permit. Following approval, the zoning designation for each lot shall remain in effect and may not be changed or amended except through a rezoning or an amendment to the PUD master plan. Number 7, revise sheet 1 of the master PUD plan as follows. Replace "and" with "or" in the zoning designation for Lot 2 and Lot 3, Block A, and Lot 2, Block B. Designate Lot 1, Block B as stormwater management easement. Number 8, update the master PUD plan to remove all references to a public sanitary sewer system. Under utility notes, delete note number 5. Under circulation, parking, and traffic notes, delete note 1 and revise note 2 to reflect 2 entrances from Southwest 10th Street. Under building and structure notes, delete note 4. And item number 9, all use and development shall comply with the recorded amendment number 2 to the master PUD plan for building stone and landscape villa number 2. That concludes
Thank you.
this item.
Do the commissioners have any questions of staff?
Yeah, I read through all that before I got here, and I'm still, I guess, confused, because that's a lot of back and forth. But, so we have one piece of property that has not been divided, platted, but we're gonna change the zoning on potential.
So this, this case originally, you can see from the Z number, it originally came to the Planning Department, Planning Commission in 2010. At that time, it was divided into 2 properties, and I will stand real quick and show you. The original dividing line was right here, and the top was 1 lot and the bottom was a 2nd lot, with what is now Higgins Stone developed over here. The way that it's been developed is that there is a road that's been put in here with a little dead-end turnaround area. It does not go all the way through, but the original plan allowed for 1 entrance here and 1 entrance here. This is 10th, this is Auburn Road, and so it does allow for an entrance here. They've come to us a couple of different times with some development options, and the current PUD significantly restricts what can be done with development. And so the owners and their consultants, the engineers, have worked with the city and with the county in reconstructing this, specifically with the city, because it does have to be replatted in order to divide this into smaller parcels. But then with us in regards to the zoning. So it is currently a PUD. and it allows for C2 on one parcel and C4 on the other. It has a bunch of restrictions on that, so they can't do anything within C2 or anything within C4, and part of that has hindered their ability to develop it further. The other part of that, so the way that the proposal works now is that they are asking for each of these parcels, the undeveloped parcels, to be able to be either C2 or C4. So they would still keep a C2 or C4 potential designation. You don't interchange the C2 or C4. Whatever it shows as C2 or C4, that's the potential on those lots. But they also wanted to add the potential for storage units, which we only allow under I-1. So then they would like to have the option for that I-1. But once, like, they don't know who they're developing with yet. Once someone comes in and wants to buy or develop that property, they would have to pick the C2 or I-1 or the C4 or I-1, and they would develop it as that, and they wouldn't be able to change it to a different zone without coming back and asking for an amendment.
Okay, that's what I was hoping for.
So-
You did a great job reading,
Yes,
I got turned around.
I
on
know, it's
what exactly
complicated,
what it was
but the benefit, like, normally you wouldn't see this alternative option, but that's the benefit of a PUD, is because of that master plan, we can lay those options out and give them that development opportunity. You can't do that with other types of zones because you don't have those master plans, and that's the benefit of this. And some of the other language in there was just cleaning up the master plan to make sure that when someone in 10 years looks at it, they can read it and say, this is what was supposed to happen.
Gotcha. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Would the applicant care to make a presentation now?
Good evening. I know in the sake of time, you've been here a long time, but just to add, the way it looks right now is probably not going to be the way it looks eventually in terms of lots. And it was said well that it's all speculative, and it depends on what they can do and who they can do to be able to come in and develop the property. So once that development comes in, then we can configure lots. This is the zoning piece of it. The lots would still have Shawnee County input into the city of Topeka rezoning or replatting to make the lot lines where they are, because we have to have the lot lines allow for that use, allow for sanitary sewer conditions on that lot, depending on how it is. And then there's also an existing easement that runs right through east-west about the middle of the lot with a major AT&T duct line. So that's made it very difficult for the development of this lot as well, because it was split north-south, and that doesn't really work with that eastern lot, and the eastern frontage on Auburn Road or K4 would be the intriguing piece of the developer's property. Free to answer any questions that you may have.
So there's no one person that's really ready to develop it at this point in time. You'll just be marketing the property?
Sort of. With the owner of the property, Mike Higgins, could reserve and do the development himself. He owns the property and the development on the west side of the property, and that's where we went into the storage piece of the puzzle, is because it's a highway intersecting an interstate, which might result into a potential for storage unit need in that area, just like we have just a little further south on Auburn Road. He has not said that he wanted to do that. We've been looking at a C-store, convenience store, more so as something that would fit this corner very well, but it's a little more difficult with the location of utilities, and it wasn't allowed under the lot on the PUD prior. Hope I answered that.
Okay, thank you.
So yes and no.
Are there any other questions? Thank you very much. We'll open the public hearing at this time, and we'll call for public comments from persons in support first. there anyone like to speak in support?
Excuse me, my name's Joseph A. Prohaska. My wife and I built a house on 1048 West Side Drive, which is in Huntoon Hills, which we share about 800 feet of the property line between Higgins Stones. In 2010, I was here, and I said some of the same things I'm going to say today. When we came and built our home, we did all the research we could. We looked at the zoning, we saw that corner was residential. We were the third house to build in Huntoon Hills. Huntoon Hills has restrictions. We can't have a house that's less than 1,800 square feet. It requires us to have certain siding. We can't use vinyl siding. We thought we were pretty safe. We wanted to live out in the county. We built a nice home with restrictions that we thought serve our property values. That was in about 2002. 2010, we had a hearing. Mr. Higgins came with a lawyer, similar to the one he has today. There weren't too many people there at the time to protest it because there was this threat that if we didn't agree to the change in the zoning, they were going to put a truck stop there or a convenience store. They were very reasonable. He said he was going to put his business in the front half of the two lots, and that the access would be on Auburn Road. At least that's what I understood. Also, that there'd be a 3-foot berm around the property with Austrian pines, and that there'd be a pond. I assume that's where the septic system was going to work. Well, after he built the building, it's a nice, beautiful building. It's on the west side. He immediately put a sign up to try to develop the front end of that. And that sign has been there for probably 10 years. Nobody's biting. And we were kind of sold a bill of goods. So now we have something that's zoned commercial. And so now we're going to clean it up by adding industrial, and we're going to put a convenience store on that corner. And as I remember looking at the zoning laws, or the explanation, it was supposed to be for the good of the community or the area. And I imagine if you took a poll, there's nobody that wants a convenience store off I-70 and Auburn Road. You can just imagine the kind of people and the traffic that it would draw simply because Mr. Higgins wants to make some more money. And I understand that we need to have economic development. This county is full of pot-marked spots where we gave a little bit of zoning and an empty business or starts and then it empties out. And it's unfortunate because somewhere along the line, the individual resident who has a home is ignored in this process. And I feel a little bit betrayed because now we're up here talking about something that's far more intense than what it was prior. And I don't know who or what part of the county is supposed to protect residential integrity. When we buy homes, we live there for a long time and we invest, and we feel like we're safe. When things like this come along, it's very disturbing. Mr. Higgins bought the land from a neighbor down the street who I remember him referring to it as his retirement plan. He sold those 23 acres, and the deal was basically based on the fact that it was going to be zoned for commercial. So again, I feel betrayed, and I feel like I listened to what went on earlier today, and these people were a lot of emotion, and I can understand the emotional part, but I don't know where you stand. You know, you think you do the right thing, you do your research, and then somebody decides they need to make some money, decides to change some zoning. I think that's unfortunate. So anyway, that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Is this against or for?
Well, I had asked for those who supported it first,
Yeah, I know,
but.
that's why I just wanted to make sure before I got up, I'm not.
So I was going to say, is there any person here that wants to speak in support of it? Because if not, then
Go on with those?
we'll on with those that are opposed.
Thank you. My name's Kent Palmberg, and I live at 1216 West Side Drive, just to the west and a little south of the property that we're talking about. I was also here in 2010, and I remember that discussion very clearly, and I remember everything that was just said was so accurate that we were told what we were going to have, and then it didn't exactly turn out that way. There was this group was adamant about the fact that nobody could do anything on that property until there was sewer out there. And there was a reason for that. And everybody was happy with the PUD that was put before us, and it made sense. That property's been for sale for probably, I'm gonna say, more than 10 years, maybe 12 or 15. Nobody's buying it, so now Mr. Higgins wants to rezone it so that he can sell the property. But nothing's changed. The same reasons that you all approved that property, if sewer came out there, still exist today. So I don't think anything's changed. I don't see any reason why this should be approved. It seems strictly just somebody's trying to figure out a way to get that property sold. It's as simple as that, and it's certainly not bringing any value to the community. I would say the amount of traffic on Auburn Road over the last 10 to 15 years has increased substantially, and there will be a lot of issues associated with something that would be increased traffic, like, for example, a convenience store, for example, would have a huge impact on traffic. So I appreciate your consideration of denying this request for this rezoning, and it just doesn't make any sense to me. Nothing's changed. Thank you.
My name is Jeff Morris. I live at 1039 Southwest West Side Drive. I speak in opposition of the rezoning, just as the other gentlemen have said. 15 years ago, we came here to rezone from residential to what it is now. The reason's not to change the zoning. I've got small children right at the corner of that intersection. We've got a lot of traffic already. It increases with all the development that's southwest of Topeka. I don't think we want the kind of traffic that's going to come in to this part of the area. Just crossing Auburn Road from 10th Street, could be anywhere from a 5 to 10 minute wait already. A question I have is in regards to the even if it does get rezoned, it's my understanding the property still can't be commercially developed because of the 3-mile radius that the city has on this area. So without the extension of any sewer or other utilities, I think that prohibits the discussion from even being, going further even to the city at this point. As they've said, this property's been for sale for 15 years, or at least he's tried to parcel it off for a long time. There's been numerous people that have pursued this property, and the city has denied them over and over because there's no sewer line to develop the property. So even if it gets rezoned, who's gonna fund the sewer coming to this area? It's not gonna be it won't be a benefit district where the neighbors have to chip in because we don't want to connect to it. it would only have to be some organization that can fund that length of sewer. I'm not against to developing the parcels that he has for the intended use that he agreed to. Part of what we all thought we were sold is that, sure, he's gonna change the zoning and put in a nice building, which he has, but it wouldn't be anything relatively close to a convenience store, dentist office or, construction company that has an office or something similar to that. So, as I said, I oppose the rezoning and that type of development to this area. Thanks.
Good evening. I'm Elizabeth Prohaska, and my husband and our property is backed up to the west side of Higgins Stone. And when this originally started, it was residential, zoned residential, and when he tried to sell everybody, he was going to develop a beautiful stone building, which he has on the front corner, and beautify that corner with a lovely landscaped pond and a berm barrier with pine trees on it, which none of that has happened. And as you see where it's at, it is backed up to the back of our property now. It's not on the very front like he sold everybody. And we were told there would be 2 entrances. The one off of Auburn Road would be where the big trucks with the limestone would come in and unload to keep us safe on 10th Street. That did not happen either. So they come in off of his main entrance off of 10th Street, and unfortunately, when you come around that curve, there's a little bit of a hill. Right there is his drive. It's a blind spot coming from our side, from the west. So that's an issue. The noise, imagine big trucks with limestone and them cutting it, whatever they're doing in the back there, it reverberates through our property. So when we bought our land 23 years ago, only because I had to be convinced, because it was residential, and I just thought, well, it's so close to the interstate and Auburn Road, but I like, well, that's a big space. So then he came in, and this happened, and then when he started building, it was not on the corner like we were told, it was buffered up against the back of our property. So during the day, the noise from his trucks, whatever he's doing to the stone back there, we get to listen to. Putting in a convenience store 24 hours, no. The noise it would bring into our property, the light, and we've got some trees there, I'm not saying we don't. When that's gone, I can see light from the 10th Street, from the interstate coming through. I think about the noise we're gonna have from something like a convenience store. Like Jeff said, that's your name, right? Like Jeff said, what's already there is, we didn't want anyway, but that is acceptable. But anything where we're gonna have a 24-hour service where there's gonna be cars coming in and out day and night, is gonna be in our back door. It literally will be in our back door. And it's not, they don't have a system. I'm really concerned about what water waste system they're discussing. My dad worked for the health department for many, many years, and he went out and tested water and did all sorts of things, and that just sounds pretty fishy to me. I'm like, if they don't have the sewer system out there like they said they'd have to have before he could develop, that concerns me, because when we have a lot of water runoff, we literally have a river going through our backyard, through our property and down, because there's a small stream that goes through there. So that environmentally kind of concerns me too. Personally, what he's already got down there is acceptable for what we've got to deal with, but anything that's gonna be car repair, where you're talking about more noise from, well, just drive by anybody that works on cars. You're gonna have the tires being removed by the heavy equipment. No, I oppose it. It's already kind of a pain in my back personally, so I oppose any changes. I accept what's there now. I think that's fair, and I oppose any other changes to the property. Thank you.
Good evening, my name's Anthony Conradi. I live at 1221 Southwest West Side Drive. I live within 1,000 feet of this proposal. So concerns I have with this is one that's been brought up is the sewer. So currently Higgins is on a septic system. So without a sewer, if we're proposing some large development on the corner, is it gonna be required to be on a sewer system? Is it gonna be on a septic system? If it's on a septic system, it's a commercial business. That doesn't seem like an ideal situation for the neighborhood, that kind of thing. Secondly, in the rezoning application, it talks about the removal of prohibited uses from the original PUD. So I was here like most of our neighbors back in 2010, and Bartlett and West at the time probably overpromised, underserved what was promised. But here we are again, nothing's changed, and now we're trying to get back to, we want to make these restrictions on these, or lift these restrictions on the original PUD. So I think, I don't know what all's in the original restrictions, but obviously lifting them will give them a little more flexibility. And then lastly is traffic. So many of you know Auburn Road is a busy thoroughfare. The speed limit's 50 miles an hour. As mentioned earlier, traffic getting off at 10th Street onto I-7 near Auburn Road in the mornings between 6:30 and 8, and then 4 to 6 every day, you sit for a while. And it's 50 miles an hour, so they come up on you quick. You have all the traffic off I-70 going right into that same area, so it funnels. So if you put some kind of development on the corner and has access to Auburn Road, there's gonna be traffic issues. 10th Street's already acts as a frontage road to the highway, right off the highway, and traffic can be a mess right there. The last thing I'll just point out is the concerns of staff and the reviewing agencies. So the Public Works Department's expressed concerns with traffic. You can't just throw a roundabout there or something. I mean, if you're trying to put an exit in with a high traffic volume, you're gonna have problems, you're gonna have accidents. 50 miles an hour is, you're moving. Secondly, KDOT has expressed concerns with this. So, in my opinion, it's not a slam dunk. I think there's lots of potential flaws with this. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tom Sheets, 1224 Southwest West Side Drive. I've just really echo some of the things that my neighbors have said. Traffic is a big concern of mine. Tony talked about getting in and out at the rush hour, morning and evening. A lot of traffic, you sit and wait. More traffic as a result of a convenience store would really hinder, our ability to get in and out, but also the safety factor of being able to get in and out. I've seen wrecks there. I haven't personally had one myself, but that it happens. Convenience stores. How big of a convenience store? I mean, are we talking about a small convenience store, or is this kind of a setup for something really big? Could it turn into truck stop, for example? Having semis sitting there like you see them at Love truck stops or out on the highways or wherever, sitting there rumbling all night long, and lights and all of the other traffic that happens as a result of a truck stop. So, lighting. With some type of convenience store, or God forbid, something worse, and I didn't hear much from the gentleman that gave his presentation on what possibly is going to go in there, sizes or anything. But lighting, having that lit up, just, we bought that property out there in 2022, or 2002, and I've lived out there since 2004, and have enjoyed that rural setting. And this is potentially gonna change all that for us. So I object to it, and I don't know if you'll let me speak for my wife, but she also objects to it. Thank you.
Is there any other comments from the public?
Well, I do have some more, but I didn't know if I could say any more.
Did she use her 4 minutes, or?
We weren't running the clock because of the shorter period. Everybody stayed within their little scope.
All right.
That's up to
If
you.
you'd like to keep it short.
Oh, it'll be short. I forgot.
Can you go to the podium, because we do
Sure.
have a recording system going.
I actually checked for convenience stores in our area. And it's something that's not really needed, because within 5 minutes straight east of us on 10th Street, there are 2 at Wanamaker. Basically about 3 miles away. And then you go to 21st and Urish, and there's a Casey's there. So I'm looking at what is really needed and convenient for us. It's not another convenience store. We have gas stations and convenience stores within 10 minutes of us, just about any direction. So it's not really needed. The other thing is that it didn't bring up is it would bring crime into our neighborhood with a gas station, a convenience store. I mean, anybody here knows that's going to bring people in all night long. They're going to start investigating our neighborhood. Right now, I would say I don't know that anybody here has had any crime, any issues with that. That would bring crime into our neighborhood too. I meant to say that when I was speaking earlier. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
The applicant will now have time for rebuttal comments.
Thank you, Kevin Holland, Cook Stroll Engineers. Just to rebut a couple, has to be a convenience store by the limitations of pure size. We have drainage needs for detention and then a septic system out there that would take space as well. So this isn't proposed. It's already a C2 and C4 zoning in the PUD. All it is lifting restrictions for convenience store or adding the storage facilities, which from a traffic standpoint, the storage facilities generate very little traffic, so it might be a great use of that property as well. It wasn't mentioned, but the pond that's out there is detention. The current one is septic system under the current facility, and septic system on go through all of North Topeka. Septic system on commercial properties works the same as it would on a residential property, and actually more restricted from a commercial side than a residential side. But traffic, a TIA or a TIS would be required for the entrances off of 10th Street or for the traffic for the use. That would have been done already, but it's hard to put a TIA together for an intended use that you don't know yet. So that will be done before anything any development is done.
Quick question for you. The way, I'm just looking at these potential lines, you said they're not going to be exactly where they're at, but can anything be further developed in the southwest corner?
No, that
is all part of the main
He will
building?
hold that as part of his own property. That line will only go east, it will not go further west. You mean, just to make sure?
Yeah.
He's holding that for his own, it's a buffer for his own property as well.
And Kevin, can you point to the one which is the stormwater detention? That one. So no development can occur on this parcel either?
Correct.
So
Currently, it's the detention basin here. The rest of the detention, whatever it is, would be used in that facility.
Yeah, so it's just the 3 parcels on the southeast that can be potentially developed with this.
And as I said, can you show the other property, and I can show the limitation, the engineer drawing?
Oh, do we have it on there?
Probably
I don't think
early
so.
on, but
There.
There we go, okay.
This is the easement that I'm speaking of. There's an AT&T line that runs right through it, which that's that line can't be relocated.
And we're looking to remove, you're asking to have the restrictions removed on C2, C4, or the uses. So could a convenience store currently come in without us taking any action right now?
I don't believe that's it. I don't believe
No.
so.
Not with the
What
current
could come in? Sorry, I'm gonna bounce back and forth, ask questions, so she knows more.
I would have to pull, do you have the original?
I'm just trying to get an idea. I mean, could an insurance agent could like a little 3-door strip mall come in? I'm just trying to figure out what the limitations
That
are.
would be C4, so that could come in.
Okay.
So the original. Okay, so the original PUD said, the following uses shall be prohibited within the planned unit development. All uses which require conditional use permit. Automotive service station, hold on. Amusement indoor establishments, automobile rental establishments, automobile service station, bed and breakfast inn, billboards, panel posters, construction and mechanical contractors, communication towers and dishes, community centers, community living facility, correctional placement facility, crematorium, like the list goes on.
Okay, yeah,
In essence, when they did this, they eliminated almost all of the allowable uses within C2 or C4 other than a few.
What would be like an example?
I have no idea.
Okay, sorry.
Like if to go through and to have eliminated it, I would have to pull up our regulations and see which ones were allowed. It was very limited in scope.
And which, what this is doing is adding a couple of uses back in.
Well, if approved, it would add all uses back in.
Right. The way that
Not a
we
couple.
had it presented is that they wanted to remove the restrictions, and so those restrictions were all removed from the notes, and so.
I don't know that we are strong on that feeling. I think if we were coming in to be able to look at a C-store or I uses, I think we're fine restricting several uses. Obviously, it's easier to have some of those, but we're not looking to put a machine shop or car fix place or automobile repair place or anything like that.
So this might be another Joni question again. Apparently, I'm just gonna pepper her all night. Is there, rather than taking a sweeping action to lift all of it off, is there a way to just redo that? I mean,
Yes.
not that I wanna go line by line, but I just, because you may move on, Higgins could sell it. The next guy, just because we lifted, I promise I won't put auto body repair right there, but the next guy might. I mean, if we've lifted it, there's nothing.
Correct, and we're not opposed to having restrictions upon those uses for the same thing.
So really, I hate to say this, the only way to do this in that manner then, with us feeling confident in how we're doing it, would be to either have you make like a motion to specifically leave the restrictions on except for a couple of additional uses. Or, so like, meaning you would say, the motion would be that we would make a motion to approve the modifications with the contingency that all of the restrictions would stay except for the following, and then have Mr. Holland give us a list of what he thinks. The other option would be to defer this and have them more clearly line out which ones they want to keep, so that we can make it clear within their proposal.
I like option 2 better, just as I'm thinking out loud. Or throw out a third choice. I mean, I guess you guys haven't had a lot of movement on these lots or property of interest yet, so you're trying to generate more interest. Is there a way to, I'm gonna hold that thought, not say that part out loud. I'll think about that in a minute.
There's been traffic generation in the areas that we're coming to try to add these uses in.
Okay.
If that helps, that's.
Yeah, that does help, thank you.
So also with this, like, part of the concept of doing this rezoning in this manner right now is depending on what happens tonight or whenever this gets considered and approved or denied, then they can finalize things with the city of Topeka. They can't replat it with the city if this isn't reconsidered, because it would be a waste of time. They could go replat it with the city, but then they would come to us and we would say, nope, you can't do it. And so it was kind of, in these situations, we always get into the chicken and the egg argument, which one comes first. And so they came to us first to do the zoning portion of it, so they know what they have the ability to do, so they can finalize things with the city of Topeka plating. In general, whatever happens with the plating is gonna be fairly similar to what is here today. If they do have to make modifications to it, it's possible they'd have to come to us for a minor amendment, depending. Really what we're looking at today is the use of it, not necessarily the layout of the land, but there is a PUD site plan that is approved as a part of this, so if they change it with plating, they would have to come to our office. But if it's only, sort of as Hareem had already pointed out, if it's only dealing with the site plan and property lines, we can do that as a minor amendment because it's not impacting the actual use of the property. And so it's, you know, they should be able to do any changes beyond here through a minor amendment, but you can't change the uses without coming back. And so that's where we stand today and where there's kind of some unknowns at this point.
Seems weird to make decisions like that without having, I guess I'm used to having someone come in and, hey, I want to put a rodeo here, I want to put a shop here, I want to do this, and you have concrete things that you know what's coming, but
In reality, if we put limited O&I uses, which are, that's your office and institutional, which is exactly what you kind of have to some degree, or what you were talking about in a C2 or C4 use, or the convenience store, or the industrial use for storage units, those two are the major pieces of the puzzle. The other units could be important, but at this point are not the focal matter, if that makes.
yeah, but I mean, at this point, I mean, things can, I mean, because this may take years to develop and get interest, I mean,
For
things
sure,
can always change.
For sure. But if you allowed those uses, even, and we can come up with some language that makes sense if you were so inclined to go that direction. I know continuing it to next month, then it makes it difficult again, not that it's a big issue, but all of a sudden, now we have, you know, do we reopen the public hearing and have that conversation again? And I don't know the rules on that. We've run into that before. Just making sure we're above table on everything.
I'm gonna ponder for a minute and stop talking.
Anything more for me, or? Thank you. If I could add one more thing, I know we talked, one motion, or one mention was all-night activity. I don't know if that's in the cards for a convenience store in this location as well. I don't believe, you know, if you wanted to put a limitation at some sort of overnight hours, I don't think that's out of the client probably would not have an issue with that.
And even thinking of that, Joni, we would have to have a traffic study, right? For if there was a convenience store or,
So they are, based on the recommendations right now, they would be required to have a traffic study no matter what.
Okay.
So with this, the problem is that with the drainage or stormwater drainage study and the traffic study, we don't know enough about the use for them to properly make those assessments. And so they're just not as good of a study, basing it off of a bunch of what ifs. So as this, you know, if this would get approved as it is, before they could do any development, that traffic study and that stormwater drainage would have to be done. It gets reviewed by Public Works and Health Department and Planning Department and whoever needs to look at it, KDOT. They make recommendations and suggestions or conditions, and then we put those conditions on any development so that things don't happen unless those are met. And so in some scenarios, in a lot of scenarios, those happen before you guys hear it, when you have a known development.
Are there any other questions or comments? Then, would a commissioner care to make a motion?
I would close the public hearing
Oh,
first, and
okay.
then, yeah.
All right. I should read my notes here, I guess. We'll close the public hearing then.
No, after the original and then with the rebuttal, there's no additional public comment.
So we'll close the public hearing, and now I'll ask if the commissioners have any further discussion or would like to make a motion.
I'd move to approve the application given the 9 conditions listed under staff recommendations.
Is there a second? Can I second it?
Can you second it? Yeah.
Because a lot of times the chair can't.
Yes, you
So-
can as the chair second.
All right, well, I will second it just so that we can proceed. And I agree that there are lots of fail-safes here, I guess you'd say, with all of the reports that have to be made before anything can be done.
Okay, so at this point, we have a motion and a second to approve as conditioned by the staff report.
Right.
Chad Gearhart, Terry Robinson,
Yes.
Jeanette Johnson,
Yes?
Myron Lenwetter, Rosa Cavazos,
No.
Dan Bryan.
Yes.
Okay, with 3 voting yes and 1 voting no, we have a motion to recommend approval that was accepted. So at this point, it does go to the Board of County Commissioners on December 8th at 9 a.m. Based on the recommendation of the Planning Commission. And that's at the BCC Chambers, 707 Quincy.
All right, then, we will ask if there's any public comment on non-agenda planning and zoning items. And then we'll have a discussion of planning-related issues. We were planning a work session on solar energy conversion system regulations, which I'm sure you'll find very exciting, but I don't think we're gonna do too much discussing of that this evening. But Joni, you had some things to add.
Yeah, just a couple of comments on the solar energy conversion. As you guys are aware, we did the town hall meeting last month. Feels like.
You've kept us busy.
Yeah. So last month, we did the town hall meeting. I did take an opportunity to take some of those comments and have tried to incorporate them the best that I could with recommendations that were talked about. And so I would say the one thing that I'm struggling with the most probably would be on Jeanette's question about how, can we put a limitation against undeveloped subdivisions? And I just don't know how we do it. And so think about it. If you guys have a recommendation, my biggest concern, what I did was I went and measured some parcels that are next to undeveloped subdivisions. And it's just hard because some of those subdivisions have been sitting undeveloped for 50 years, for 10 years. And we just don't know if and when that development will ever occur. And so if we put that limitation, my concern being that we could be limiting something that's non-existent. Albeit, I completely understand what you're trying to accomplish by that, because if you do have an active subdivision, then it would be an issue. I think what my recommendation on that would be that we just put maybe a note that says that could be a consideration, instead of necessarily putting an actual restriction, so that it's identified as a potential issue within the, what are we, there's the requirements, and then there are the things that we should consider or can consider. Maybe we put that in there instead of a hard line requirement, but as something to consider based on the circumstances, because we may have something next to a subdivision that will never develop, that could move forward, or in the alternative, know that there's development coming and be able to do something more about that. So that would be my recommendation, unless there's other discussion on it.
This is reasonable to me.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is finalize the notes and updates, and we will hopefully talk about it in December so that you guys can know what it is that you're looking at. We do have a couple of topics that will be in front of you in December. The first is a Home Plus location, so a house where a woman is wanting to open sort of like a nursing home or an assisted living type facility, but it's in a house, so it's very limited in scope. You have a maximum of 10 people living in a home, a house with a couple of nurses, versus in a large facility. It's very popular nationwide. We just, to my knowledge, don't have any here. The other item is a maternity home for women who need additional assistance. And it's, the request is at the Villages, where not in the parcel where they were housing children, but the parcel right next to it, but it's part of that same complex and land that they own. It's a single house, and it would also have a few residents who are expecting children, and helping them as they process through their delivery and such. So those two items are up for December. And so we will probably, like we did last year, for those of you who were on the commission, have a short little holiday celebration beforehand, and then our two items, and then a short, again, discussion on the solar to get things wrapped up. And then we would do a solar hearing in January. We don't know at this point if there are any other items. I plan on just holding it here. I think that based on our experience, we know how many people we can kind of hold in this room and in the overflow. And I think that we can handle it here instead of moving it elsewhere. Questions? Okay, that's it.
Sounds good.
We adjourn?
We adjourn.
We're adjourned.
Have you turned off the live feed yet?